Me again. Okay, so everybody here has donated towards what's about the £25,000 mark to give away to the Children's Hospital. And this is something to me and my family that is so personal, because they actually gave my daughter the gift of hearing, and they also can't be responsible for Will at the minute. But yeah, so there's a long story about Jessica. So Jessica was born with, let's say, a firestorm, and we didn't know if she could hear. When we were first told about her condition, auditory neuropathy spectrum disorder, we were told she might not be able to hear to the level of a jet engine. And that's pretty severe. Coming from someone with a musical background, everything was like, oh my God, she won't be able to enjoy all the things we can do and what we hear and how are we going to communicate, how are we going to talk. It throws you into a tailspin. We went through a whole series of tests and it kind of came out that there was an option. And so Jess actually went through Birmingham for her cochlear implants, and it changed our lives. It changed her life, absolutely. It changed our lives, and it changed the life of, come on shorty, say hi.
Bonjour.
Love it. So point proven, she can speak French as well. So yeah, it changed everybody's life around us. You know, the relationship we have with her now, the relationship she has with us, her family, her friends, it was absolutely life-changing. So given the whole fact that there is a little chapter in a book, does anyone have a copy of a book around? There's a few knocking about. There's a story about a little girl who can't hear the doorbell, and we didn't intend for the money to go to the Children's Hospital in the first place. This event was set up around, you know, the community, the connection, everything that we know, the impact that we can all have on each other's lives. And then we had one of those 2 a.m. moments that said, Eureka, we know where the money can go, and it ties in perfectly. So just to prove a point, there's a video that we're going to play next. And Chloe, my little camera girl, recorded this video in the car the other day. And this wouldn't have even been a possibility without the magic that has happened with Jess and her implants. Imagine if you couldn't take a drive and talk to your child. Imagine if they were in the back and it was just silent for them. You couldn't communicate, they couldn't hear the music, they couldn't hear the wind, they couldn't hear anything. Imagine what that would be like for them. And so if I just let this video play, as you watch it, just think about what that actually would mean if this miracle for her to hear didn't happen. Okay? Cheers, Ben. Go with it. Jess, why is it important to be happy?
Because if you're happy and you see a sad person, you can spread your happiness to the sad person, and the sad person will become happy, and they will spread their happiness to the other people who is sad, and they will also spread their happiness to all over to the people.
So what are we going to be today? Yeah. So yeah, imagine that if there was no hearing and if there was a severe no communication. It just wouldn't be possible. So to come and talk a little bit about the cochlear implant team at Birmingham, we've got Richard from Birmingham Children's Hospital. If you'd all give him a very big warm welcome. Richard.
So firstly, a massive thank you to the organisers for inviting me to speak. A huge thank you for all of you for choosing us, for your charity and for your very generous donations. Slightly smaller thank you for putting my talk on at the beginning of the FA Cup final. I'll catch the highlights later, but such is life, I guess. So, by way of introduction, I'm Richard Irving. You can put the first slide up. I'm a consultant surgeon at the Birmingham Children's Hospital. I trained at London University, qualified in medicine in 1985. I trained throughout London, did my thesis in molecular genetics in Cambridge. Very relevant because hearing loss is the commonest genetic condition to afflict mankind. I then completed my surgical training at UCSF Stanford in San Francisco, California, and came to Birmingham 1997, and have been here ever since. I intended to take a job in London. I thought I'll come to Birmingham for a few months before a job comes up, and I'm still here 25 years later. It's a great city. I would recommend it for those of you who are just visiting for the first time. So my talk is going to be a little bit different from the ones you've heard already today. I'm not going to be primarily motivating you, although hopefully some of you might be inspired by what I say. Actually, my motivation's a little bit more devious, really. It's to try and pull on your emotions, tug on the heartstrings a little bit. We want funding. And I'll explain a little bit about the team, about who we are, what we do, and to give you some sense about what your money might be used for. Not going to work. Can we have the next slide, please? So I'd like, firstly, to introduce you to Julia. So Julia was born at the beginning of COVID. So in the middle of COVID, we were contacted. She is a girl from the Middle East. She was born with a syndrome resulting in multiple congenital abnormalities with her heart, her kidneys, visual disturbance. She had no muscles on one side of the face, and she was profoundly deafened. A complex child, and her parents were desperate, as any parent would be, to do the best for their child. So they went around a number of centers in the Middle East where they were living at the time, asking if they could do anything to help with her hearing. And all of these centers looked at her and went through her medical records and thought, this is too complicated. They just weren't confident enough to take this on. So via a friend of mine in the Middle East, they got in touch with us, and we had a Teams call and this was in the middle of COVID. And we got the medical records and the scans sent over, and we thought, yes, we've seen children like this before. We've treated children like this before. And we think there's a chance we can help. So the family struggled to travel, so I arranged for the child to go to Oman. I got the local team in Oman to talk to their government, who funded a cochlear implant for this child. I flew out there for a family holiday, took a day out of my family holiday to go to the hospital. I think my wife has forgiven me, but you know, if you marry a surgeon, tough, that's what you have to do in life. So we implanted the child, and then this is 2 weeks later. So this is a child, her brain has never received a sound, doesn't know what a sound is, has no perception of sound whatsoever. She's a little bit older than the ones we normally implant because this was COVID and there were travel problems, etc. So we're switching her on. She's hearing sound for the first time. She has no idea what it is. Can we play, please? So, confusing, but for us, that brain has just received a signal we can work with that. So that is the start. Next slide, please. So I'll tell you a little bit about what a cochlear implant is. Many of you may be familiar with them. I'll talk a little bit about the team as well. So a cochlear implant, fundamentally, it's a very powerful hearing aid, but it's a hearing aid that works for a particular type of hearing loss. And it has two components. One component which is on the outside, which is consisting of a transmitter coil, which sends the signal to the implanted component, and that's connected to a microphone and some electronics. So on the outside, the sound is picked up, converted, sent to the implant. The implant receives the signal, decodes it, and sends it down a wire that is fed surgically inside the inner ear. The inner ear is wonderful in the way it's constructed. We have the cochlea. At one end of the cochlea, we have low frequency. The other end, we have high frequency. It's laid out like the keys of a piano keyboard, and the electrodes are sited at different frequencies, so that's how we get frequency information. And there are complexities to the signal that allow us to get a powerful signal in. That signal goes straight to the nerve of hearing, and that's key. What we need is a nerve of hearing that works and a hearing brain as well. In a child, we have typically a brain that is plastic and able to receive signals. You get to a certain age, not quite so plastic, learning is lost. So in a young child, it works very well. In adults, depending on their experience of sound, less so. Next slide, please. So our team, and for a child, a lot of hard work is required. Not just putting the implant in, but when the implant is in, working with the child, developing their hearing skills and their speech and language. And we started our team back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. We have experience of over 800 cochlear implant operations. Hence, when this child from the Middle East contacted us, we went through our memory and thought we have seen this before. The two surgeons on the team, myself and my colleague, between us, we have over 50 years of cochlear implant experience. We are receiving a large number of referrals, mainly from the West Midlands region, but some from outside. We implanted 48 children in the last calendar year. Many of them have complex needs, like the girl I've showed you. The youngest we implanted was 3 months, so that's about as far as we can push it. Not quite in utero yet, okay? We're based in the newer building at Aston University campus, and the older building on the bottom is the hospital where the surgery is carried out. We're involved in research, clinical trials, teaching and training, and I'll talk a little about that. Next slide, please. So our large team, I never know who to put at the top, but I know that I should go at the bottom. So we have audiological scientists, audiologists, speech and language therapists, administrators, nurses, and we have 2 surgeons attached to the team. And the hard work goes on right through childhood, from the day they get the implant right until they move on when they're 16. Next slide, please. And we get very close to our children, and our children get very close to us. Dearest Sophie, you did everything to make my learning fun and exciting. Thank you so much. You taught me my first words, and I will never forget. So these children become very much part of our lives. Next slide, please. So let's go back to Julia. This was the girl who we weren't sure, is she going to hear? How well is she going to hear? She's got other disabilities. We did not know what her potential was. Next, show the video, please.
Okay, Julia, we're doing feelings in front. Are you ready to sing? I'm ready. All right. Hands in front. Hands in back. Hands in front. Roll in the middle. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Climb upstairs. Run downstairs. Jump in the middle. 1, 2.
So that just gives you a snapshot of the work and effort that goes in. I don't know what her potential is, but whatever her potential is, I think with the implant we have maximized it, and we will keep working with her. Next slide, please. Many of our children, however, don't have disabilities. In fact, the majority don't have disabilities. And with their implant, we feel that actually they have the ability to access everything that all of us take for granted in the hearing world, whether it be their education, their ability to function in the world, and their prospects in life. So this is Thea. Next, can we play the video, please?
What's your name?
My name is Thea.
And how old are you?
I'm only 8.
And how long have you had your cochlear implants for?
For 6 years now.
And how easy do you find hearing at school?
It's quite tricky, but I do get used to it now.
And do you think your cochlear implants help you?
Yeah, they really help me to hear people.
And have they helped you learn to talk, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Do you like listening to music?
I love it.
Oh, what's your favourite music?
Music like Bella May and Billie Eilish.
Oh, cool. Can you tell me what you like to do outside of school, like in clubs?
I like to do gymnastics, and I like to go and make new friends.
That's good. And can you tell me about your pets at home, as I only have some pets?
I've got a dog called Biscuit and another dog called Cookie, and they're both dogs.
And how have you been helping us at the moment at Emily? What have you been doing to help us today?
I've been playing games to make you know how I can hear well.
That's right, you've been brilliant, dear. Thank you for being here today. Do you want to say anything else?
Thank you for giving money to this charity so I can have these processes today.
Oh, bless you, dear. Thank you.
Okay. Next slide, please. So sadly, our children, when they get to 16, we don't look after them anymore in the children's program. They become adults and they move on. But we do get wonderful letters. I just wanted to say thank you for looking after me since I was little. It's been a blessing to be able to hear, and it has been wonderful seeing you. I'll never forget you and your team, and I'm thankful for your kindness and patience. Thank you for being such an inspiration to me. It's a shame that I have to go, but I'll miss you all. All right? From one of our children moving on to the adult program. They continue to be monitored by the adult program, but on the adult program, we don't need to see them quite so regularly, but they have lifetime care under the team. Next slide, please. And this is another letter from a mother this time of a child who's moving on. To all at Cochlear, you have brought so much hope, potential, and smiles into the lives of so many children, including our Abdur Rahman. Now completing his GCSEs at a mainstream school, going on to do his A-levels in September, playing county table tennis, he has come a long way. He loves his time with family, friends, and it all began with you all. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And it does really all begin with the team. Next slide, please. In healthcare, advances are not made by politicians or governments or industry. They're made by passionate individuals. Politicians don't sit in a clinic with a patient. They don't see the day-to-day problems that everybody faces. We do. And we, in our frustration, think of ways we can help people. and innovative advances. Graham Clark was a pioneer in cochlear implantation. In 1974, a telethon on Channel 10 in Melbourne generated enough funds to develop a prototype, and in 1978, to test it in a human patient, Rod Saunders, a cochlear implant worked. That was it. This technology works, and it was done through fundraising and passionate individuals pushing the boundaries of healthcare. And that's where we started. But we do need politicians. Next slide, please. In the UK, we were supported by Jack Ashley. Jack Ashley was a local MP in the Midlands. He was MP for Stoke, became profoundly deafened in the 1960s. He was the first profoundly deaf member of Parliament, and much of his career he spent fighting for the disabled, and in particular for the deaf. And it was a combination of Jack Ashley and a number of ear surgeons like myself at the time who went to the government and demanded funding for cochlear implantation, convinced the government of the benefits of this technology, both in terms of the social benefits for the patient themselves and the economic benefits for the country. And out of this, we secured funding for 6 cochlear implant centres in the UK, including our centre in Birmingham. And that's, to some extent, how we got started. Next slide, please. And really, this continues to some extent even today. We are funded by the government, but for progress, we have to get funding, usually for elsewhere. It's one of our children, and her father was worried that she wouldn't wear her processors, and she wouldn't accept implants, and she'd feel she looked different. Nobody likes looking different, even if it helps you. People don't want to look different. So he shaved off his hair and had an implant tattooed on the side of his head. Probably frightened the living daylights out of the girl, but anyway, he thought this was going to help. But it said something to me in that, can I take this and put it inside the body so it's completely invisible, so nobody wearing this feels different? And so that's what we've been working on. Next slide, please. We could take the battery and put it inside. We could take the processor and put it inside. The difficulty was taking a microphone that picks up sound and have it work effectively inside the human body. Typically, in someone with a cochlear implant, they have an ear canal, an eardrum, and little bones of hearing. They all work normally, and they all receive the vibrations of sound. And so what we thought was, well, we can take the vibrations from the little bones of hearing and have that as an input into a microphone. We developed a tube microphone, and this is it being placed. We placed it in 6 patients. They had a microphone inside the body that picked up sound. And we got variable results, but some of them were staggeringly good. So I think one day, we're still working on this technology along with implant companies, but one day we will have invisible cochlear implants, completely internalized inside the body. What we've also learned over the years is that our cochlear implant patients often function much better than our patients who wear hearing aids but do poorly with hearing aids. And so in recent years, we have been giving cochlear implants to children and adults with more and more residual hearing to make their hearing better, not take them from very, very poor hearing, but from poor hearing to better hearing. The concern is that when we do the operation and we place the electrode in the inner ear, we traumatize the inner ear and we might make their natural hearing worse. If you play the video, please. So the video is, the little circle is the round window. It's part of the inner ear. And this is me making a tiny incision in that round window. And I'm trying to be as gentle as I possibly can. And here I am placing the electrode into the round window. So the round window is about 3 millimeters in size. The tip of the electrode is about 0.5 millimeter in diameter. And I'm gently placing that through that. And it coils inside the cochlea. And I place it in, but it could scrape along the wall, fold over, buckle inside the cochlea. And it can do all of that, But the forces involved in all of those movements of the cochlear implant are so small that my hand cannot sense it. This is beyond human perception. So I don't know if I'm causing trauma by doing it because they are such small forces. But a robot probably can. Next slide, please. So another project we've got working with the University of Brunel, with a group of engineers, is on a robot to insert the cochlear implant for us and to measure those forces and to adjust the insertion of the electrode to minimize the trauma, maximize the residual hearing, and improve the outcomes of cochlear implantation. Okay. Next slide, please. Other areas that we're looking at are increasing the indications for surgery. I presume many of you are familiar with Malala. I met Malala, so the story, she was a campaigner for women's education. She was shot by the Taliban in the Swat Valley. She was taken to Kandahar, she was taken to a hospital. She had part of her skull removed as her brain was swollen. She was put into a medical induced coma and brought to Birmingham. So I met her when she came out of coma. She had a paralyzed face on one side. She had CSF leaking out of her ear. She couldn't open her jaw, and the base of her skull was missing. So we took her to theatre, repaired the nerve that supplies the muscle of the face, rebuilt her skull base, freed up her jaw, and closed off her ear canal. She was deaf in the ear. And at that point, we just thought, see how you get on with hearing loss in one ear. She didn't like it. So I had numerous conversations with her while she was in hospital, and we decided that we would do a second operation to insert a cochlear implant for this girl. As I found with my ear, no one knows how much power they have in each and every organ until they lose one. We have done a number of patients, cochlear implants, who are just deaf in one ear, and the benefits are clearly nowhere near the benefits of someone who's deaf in both ears. But what I learned from Malala and a number of other patients was actually deafness in one ear is a big disability for some people. 3 months after I operated on her, she got on a British Airways jet, flew to the United Nations and gave a famous speech, one teacher, one pen, on her 15th birthday. She had the confidence to do that, and the rest, I think, is history. Okay. Next slide, please. So Malala has continued to be a campaigner for hearing loss. A report, the World Report on Hearing, was produced within the last 2 years. She wrote one of the editorials, essentially, again, persuading world leaders to give funding to assist the hearing impaired. Next slide, please. One of the next slide, please. Now, this was taken from that report, looking at the numbers of hearing impaired in the world. And although I work in the West Midlands, anyone who's involved in healthcare, yes, you look after your local population, but it's difficult not to have a global perspective on the issue. So we're looking at the profound and complete hearing losses. There are getting on for 30 million in the world. We've got a long way to go globally to provide cochlear implantation for all the adults and children who could benefit, particularly the children, from this technology. So there's a lot more work to be done. Next slide, please. And as a team, we have tried to do our little bit to help out in other countries. I first went to Bangladesh in 1998. In 1998 in Bangladesh, they'd done 1 or 2 implants, that was it. They have a population that I estimated requires 3,000 cochlear implants a year to service their population. It's a poor country. And I started working with the team. Members of their team have been over to Birmingham. Some have relatives in this area. They've stayed in Birmingham, visited our center. Some of their surgeons have been trained by ourselves and gone back to Bangladesh. I go there every few years, run workshops. I've done surgical procedures there. and I went with Anita, one of our audiologists, again to help develop their program. Last time I went 2 years ago, the surgical teams in Bangladesh were doing 600 cochlear implants a year. They do more cochlear implants in Bangladesh than we do in the UK. So you can help in these countries. If you have a long-term plan, I've been going there for over 25 years. So I acknowledge the team. We get funding from some national charities, cochlear implant companies, and also from some universities that we work with in conjunction. So I'd just like to finish with some words from one of our parents. Next slide, please. And again.
Hello, I'm Sophia. I'm the mom to 3 cochlear implant users and a grandmother to 1. A proud grandmother and a proud mother. My eldest Hajar, who's had a cochlear implant for 19 years now. In the start, it was quite hard because I didn't understand anything about cochlear implant, but the support I received from cochlear implant was absolutely amazing, was outstanding. You know, how they explained how everything would work, how it would go about. That it's not just magic that, you know, when it's switched on, it's like a click of a button and you should start hearing. They explained to me how I would have to teach her how to listen to sound, to understand sound, and then to make speech out of that sound that she hears. I'm not going to say it was easy, it was hard because obviously my emotions got in the way. And then I wasn't having any support from my family as well because they would say, oh no, it should work straight away. So it was a bit hard. And I remember the first time I heard Hajar, it was 3 months since her implant had been switched on. And the first word that she said was broom broom. And her therapist was Lindsay at that time. And it was absolutely amazing the way, knowing that a child that has never ever heard sound before, and she's profoundly deaf, born profoundly deaf, was able to say something. You know, it was just so emotional. And then the most emotional thing for me was that she's going to be able to hear my sound. You know, my first-born child wasn't able to hear anything, but thankfully, because of cochlear implant, she was able to hear sound, and she's 21 years old, and she's a mother to a 9-month-old who's also profoundly deaf and has just had her cochlear implant, and it's absolutely amazing. And our family, we are deaf proud. We're a very deaf proud family, but it's absolutely amazing, and thank you. There's not enough words that I can say to thank the cochlear implant team.
Okay. So finally, just thank you again for all of you for your generous contributions. I hope you feel you've chosen a worthy cause. Thank you.